Hmm. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. So yeah, we got nothing. So Phantom, what do you got? Yeah, yeah. When the reason people come to me is to basically remove attachments and demonic entities from their house, ghosts, things of that nature. And I usually by locate to their location what it is. People think that's remote viewing, like by locating is, and yeah, one could say it's that. But the difference between that and remote viewing is like more like a geographical like set of coordinates where that you need a name and a set of latitude, longitude, and you're basically seeing a particular landscape or something like that. By locating, you're actually it's kind of up there with astral projection, but it's a mix of remote viewing and astral projection. And you can actually walk through the person's house, or at least perceive a fragment of it, and actually get rid of whatever entity happens to be there, or at least perceive what the problem is. Sometimes they might be perceiving it wrong. They might be just spooked by something that isn't a thing, or an ailment they have, like it could be a disease, it could be a virus, it could be some kind of allergy or something like that. Could be related to a ghost, could be related to an entity, could be related to some kind of entanglement. And I've noticed 9 times out of 10, when some allergy surfaces in somebody, it's related to some kind of cord or string they have from somewhere else dimensionally. And or another version of themselves somewhere is going through it, and it's a lead through a Mandela effect thing or something of that nature. And people come to me to try to correct these things. And I have a few clients that I've had for years that some things just take a long time to correct. Yeah, Phantom, like when it comes to spells and magic, the sometimes it takes months for something to take effect. Now, like kind of times that by 10 if it's some other magical practitioner that is actually nefarious and actually putting curses on people, then you have to keep counteracting them. Sometimes that can result in a tit for tat for years. Uh, hmm. Yeah, it's a focal point, and just like when our friend Bjorn from GIC and I designed these coins, these sigil coins, that had the little 3D aspect to them. When we designed these, we put spells in mind on these with a focal point, and this becomes a physical manifestation of whatever spell you're writing on it. And we noticed that there was an extreme amount of energy that went into when these things took physical form. And I noticed this really big distinct difference where whether you left it energetic or whether you made it into a physical form. When you turn it into a physical form, it became a lens at that point. And when you create a lens, it has this particular focus on a particular set of writing or imagery, it ends up becoming something very powerful. But at the end of the day, it was still you that created that lens. Like you could create a symbol on there that actually manages to maintain a space or do something. You can even have a spell on automation at times, but at the end of the day, you're the one that still wrote it. Like a big tulpa or an egregorish type of energy, because difference between tulpa and egregor is tulpa is an individual creating a thought form of some sort. An egregor is a group creates it, and that's I've seen evidence of that time and time again. But I've also seen some of these other ancient deities. Some of them are were actually extraterrestrials too. But there were some that were that, and other ones are just tulpas and egregores that humanity created through worship energy and such. So I've run into both, but in my line of work, and sometimes during my sessions, some crap happens that you don't even expect. I always expect that that I'm going to run into at least something really nefarious, because sometimes with the client, the reason the client's coming to me to begin with is they're having some really big troubles. Now, in the past couple of years, the biggest one people have tried to come to me for is money issues, they think they've been cursed. They think that something of that nature, where all their abundance is running dry, and sometimes it is entangled. That too. It's a shitty economy mixed with ill magics that are in other places, and tulpas and egregores people have created too. So if you believe that you're cursed in some degree, and you have a money curse on you, you've created that. I've seen some external things. I've seen lots of external things, but I've seen other people's own energy reflected back at them too, and they think it's an external source too. I run into that a lot with clients. Yeah. Yes, so like say if it's an entity, a bona fide demonic entity doing it, not just a tulpa, if it's an actual demon, uh, that can actually create illnesses and allergies and all sorts of weird crap. And if you get something like that entangled with you, it'll start to not only diminish your abundance, it'll also start to diminish your health over a period of time. And I've noticed that by getting rid of the entity, then whatever it was causing, whatever its manifestation was, disappears pretty much immediately. But I have seen a few of those where I have contacted the person, and I've remote viewed it and everything and looked at it, and that there's nothing there but their own energy, and they believe something's there, and it's their own psionic field echoing back at them. Yeah, I've run into those, but also the fact that some people are just targeted. by some of these things. Like if they pissed something off out there for whatever reason, the entities think they've done it. It could be something really stupid, and like they've seen them out of the corner of their eye or something. And it could be from an ET to a demon to anything. And people do get harassed. They get hit with B2K technology from the government too. But on top of this, yeah, there are those instances where people are thinking that it has been taken care of when by like what you just said. It's a manifestation of their very own. And sometimes, and also on the flip side of this, I could take care of something real, get rid of it, and I'm so afraid something is going to come back that something doesn't. It's really themselves. An example of this was a client I had just before our conference in the summertime, and there was this lady that came to me that I saw that there was all this weird. There was legit some activity happening around her. You could clearly see there was something energetic and feel something energetic going on. I took care of the bona fide external thing. There was one small external thing that was there that was just poking at her from time to time because it was being an ass. So I just got rid of it. But she kept having, I noticed in her energy, things kept appearing. She goes, well, I feel something over here now. No, I feel something over here. I said, no, this is your own energy. These are your own fears doing this now. Your own energy is actually bouncing back at you. And I couldn't stay on the call long that morning. I had another appointment, like an eye appointment or something. So I told her, it's like, I'm sorry, I do have to end this now. But I got rid of the actual external thing. The rest is on you, not co-creating new activity. And she's like, no, I'm serious. Something is harassing me. I can feel it. And I said, I don't literally see anything. That's you doing it. And this person got really pissed at me, thinking that I couldn't tell the difference between her thought forms and an entity. And I said, no, there was literally one small entity and the rest is you. And so I have run across those situations. Now, the repeater clients, there is actually, it's not necessarily a mix of those two. The couple of the oldest clients that I have that actually have become friends of ours now. What happened in their cases is they have been targeted by dark magic. These were actual bona fide cases where there could be a certain party living near them that constantly is doing this. And we're just hoping that this person moves in this case. Some of it is actual Haitian hoodoo voodoo magic that's been done on them, things of that nature. Now, I did notice that in one case where the one voodoo Haitian, the magical practitioner, when that person went away for about 4 or 5 months, the person that was living near them that was having the problems was at peace, and there was like no activity taking place of real note. When the person came back, then the activity started again. So we determined that the activity was hovering around that particular individual. Now, could the other person have been amplifying it too, like afraid something was going to happen because the person came back? True. But it looked like for the most part that individual that was doing the magic was actually the whole epicenter of the activity in this apartment building I was looking at. And it took quite a while to pretty much almost quell that. There's still some things going on with that person, but it looks like that person's going to move completely gone soon. And so that situation might resolve itself. So I see that situation as being a little of both. Mhm. Yeah. There's a person up in Canada and one in Massachusetts we've become friends with. And Bjorn, I won't say his actual name, our mutual friend, he was one that contacted me back in, I believe I want to say it was 2016, and then he had a session with me after having heard me on a show, and then we became good friends after a while, and I work with him on a regular basis now. Uh, so yeah, that does happen from time to time. You run across soul family out there when people are guided to you for a reason, and you find out that you've had other lifetimes with them, and you have had other existences with them. So that's no accident that spirit kind of loops you around to the people you're supposed to be around, your tribe, essentially. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mhm. Like history's forgotten about it, and also people tend to forget like not all these lifetimes are linear. It's all happening all at the same time. So when you're running into this and you're seeing this other past life, you're seeing it as it's occurring. Some people forget that it's not past, present, future. It's everything, everywhere, all at once, and people forget that part. Or like Doctor Who says, a big ball of timey wimey stuff, kind of thing. So it's essentially that. Yeah, that's interesting. Mhm. Yeah, and I also have looked into other timelines and other world lines, and some little hair, like little timelines, you could be just wearing a different shirt that day, like I like to say, but then other ones are totally different, divergent world lines, and on a big tree. And what I saw with a friend of mine, where he was with a completely different spouse in this other universe, and he had no kids. He never met the wife he has now because he was with the person he was with before he met his wife in that other dimension. And it was a completely different set of a chain of events that happened for this person. So in that particular world line. And it's sometimes a little iffy looking into some of these other world lines because sometimes you get kind of jealous of how the other world line handled. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I believe it or not, I've run into that very thing. There were when I was sitting right here one day, and there was sometimes with certain timelines, they come closer to where you are, like two branches of the Yggdrasil tree kind of just come close together and kind of almost touch. And sometimes you'll get a whiff of that other world line. And in this case, there was a version of me that actually owned his own shop and actually sold like pawn. He was a pawnbroker, and I'm going okay. And he lived in what we would know as Gary, Indiana. I'm like, why are you in that part of the country? Well, in that timeline, that version of my parents did not split up, and I was originally from Chicago, uh, so basically, Gary, Indiana is right across Lake Michigan from Chicago, literally parallel to it. So I could see how that version of me moved only across the lake from that area. And I came to find out that whole set of chain of events turned out differently, and finances were differently in that one. And Joanna basically said, "Dear, could you please quit glancing at other world lines? It is just pissing you off." Because might do better. Hmm. Oh yeah. Mhm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like the one that ran the shop also had psionic abilities as well and could speak to me. I've run into that 2 times now, where another version of me could talk directly to me. Now, I was also told, apparently Spirit was showing me this as well, where I saw a version of me that was just a homeless person muttering on a corner somewhere. I'm going, yeah, that's far worse. Somebody out there was showing me, hey, you got it good, that sucks over here. So don't be so jealous that you might not have the greatest things going on like some of these others. This one's horrible over here. Just don't do that. Exactly. And also within our own world line, I've noticed some of these little hairs that split off are like the little branches that come off of the same continuous world line. Like big world events don't change, but yours do. And there was one in particular that when I was still in Arizona, that I was literally at a crossroads of. I saw that the timelines were splitting off where Joanna actually moved back here, and I ended up with someone else that I had met while we were there. And I noticed how that particular timeline basically brickwalled a little bit in because that particular relationship didn't exactly work, and I was back to nothing. And I'm thinking, and that was Spirit basically telling me, "Hey, stupid, don't get tempted by this particular person." Uh, so that was Oversoul basically going, don't. So I just let that fall to a different timeline and let it be. And sometimes it's a warning. Sometimes it's actually a good thing when it happens, that it's actually teaching you something. Because, like when I was around this particular person, I didn't actually realize I was actually forming a connection and a bond. I wasn't even thinking about it. And so it was like oh, this could go very poorly for me. I'm going to back off now. And many people will understand exactly what I'm saying. I can't go into extreme detail, but because I don't know if this other person nor Joanna will probably hear that part. But I'm just going to say that that could have ended very differently, and it did in another branch timeline somewhere. And it was actually quite interesting to have seen that. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, you gotta watch what you say, watch what you do because it's like that movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't know if anybody viewing this has seen that one. It may be goofy, but it actually showed what was the audit to what's an oversoul, where the oversoul governs all the expressions out there. And that's essentially was an uncreation and a recreation or an audit of oversoul. And I noticed a sequence where Michelle Yeoh's character is looking at a document. All of a sudden, she's seeing two versions of it and saying, okay, this way this works and this way this doesn't. And that rang true with me because I have done that numerous times myself. And getting talents and tools from other universes, that's actually a good thing. But if you do it too much, then you would destabilize things as well. And you don't really want to do that. Like if you linger too long, you can incur some major blowback, and you do not want that. And I've run into other darker versions of myself from the multiverse, and those I had to really slam that door shut and weld it shut because those were pretty ugly ones where I saw myself in a completely different world line where one was where I was a murderer, one I ended up in prison, one I ended up getting killed, and then there were a few others that were along those lines. It's like, okay, I guess that's still Spirit showing me, hey, you don't have it so bad. So look at these. So, Oh yeah, I've actually seen that not only in sessions, but I have actually seen what I thought was ghost activity, and it was legitly another version of myself from the multiverse, just looking in on me, like what how I would have looked in on someone else, and or another version of myself. And this other version, eventually, when I was able to establish contact, thought that I was being the ass because apparently I had looked in on something either in dream time or what have you. And I'm like, no, man, I don't mean any harm. If I did anything, I'm sorry. I didn't actually mean it. So I've run into that, and I've run into other ones where I happen to kind of time slip thought wise into that situation, and the other version of me has gotten seriously pissed off for doing that, or whomever is with that version. Case in point, there was like a haunting type situation going on here. I didn't know what the hell was going on, and it turned out it was another version of myself from another universe that actually had a good that was actually curious as to a certain entanglement he had there that I had actually inadvertently caused. So he's like, "Oh no, no, you caused this thing." I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't actually mean to. I will now clean this up, whatever it is. I don't actually mean to do that." So there are certain activities where it's it's your oversoul, but there's another expression of you in some other timeline, some other dimensional space that's actually doing the very thing that you're doing, but you're experiencing it from the other end of the looking glass, and it's actually quite strange. Other people and thought other clients at one point thought that I was attacking them, and it turned out to be another version or another variant, like Marvel would say, from a parallel universe. And sometimes people have alters within themselves they generate too, and their own subconscious can do it. But I'm thinking, no, I don't think this is it. And it ended up being one from another timeline that was actually trying to screw up what I was. Oh yes. Hmm. Yeah. Exactly, and I've run into a multitude of those, and it can get real hairy if you look into the multiverse. If you have the ability to traverse that and look around, it can get real hairy real fast. I wouldn't recommend prolonged doing it if you have the talent to do it. I would recommend, yeah, if you want to see if you're doing your own, say, shadow work, for instance, and you're running into some weird mannerism that you don't know, and it ends up being a bleed through. By all means, take care of it if you have the ability to take care of it, but don't just wantonly going and looking through someone's like underwear drawer in another universe. No, that's stupid. Don't do that. Very, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Oh yeah, and I've run into that where I didn't know where certain words were coming from. First, I blame the usual suspects, entity, V2K, things of this nature. I'm going, no, this has a completely different dimensional signature to it because I can kind of Rolodex it a little bit and kind of figure that out. I'm going, no, this is another version of myself that is actually looking at what I'm currently doing. And it turned out it was just another version of me sitting at the computer working on a different project and wonder why his thoughts were going a different direction, and that's because he was picking up on me. It turned out to be it was a little annoying because he was making me think a certain way, I was making him think a certain way, because I was pushing back a little bit, trying to figure out what was going on. And in the end, that door got sealed. It got sealed pretty tight, but Spirit managed to help seal that one. But yeah, I know what you're talking about, Phantom, where another one can also berate you, and it actually gets quite annoying. And then that person, no, no, not at all. Uh, I blame the Oversoul for that one. I always say, Oversoul, quit being an ass and get the other version in line. And also another friend of mine and I had a nickname for this timeline. For the longest time, we called it the Anus Universe because of so many other stupid things were happening and creepy things were happening. And so that's also a co-creation of itself. I would not recommend giving things labels like that, but at the same time, I'm going, okay, this kind of has that kind of feel to it. But then that's when Spirit showed me all these other world lines, and I'm going, I guess it's not that really. I guess that was an unfair nickname or unfair label. But yeah, because we've run into some muck recently. I'm thinking, why now? What's this all about? And Spirit's just trying to reassure me, hey, you don't have it so bad. Look at this, and it got crazy for a little bit, but I would not recommend uh, lingering in a timeline where you don't belong in, because you might screw up their situation. I've run into that where another version of me and his spouse, actually pushed me out, thinking that my energy was stinky and I couldn't be in there. So yeah, I've run into a few like that, and some that don't notice me at all. There was a version of me and Joanna that lived in a normal house in a normal neighborhood and had 3 kids. So I'm going, okay, that looks like a nice life, but neither one of them knew I was looking at all. But sure as the world, other beings out there that kind of pervade the multiverse, they know what you're doing. So you don't want to linger too long, or you're going to have somebody tapping on your shoulder going, excuse me, maybe you shouldn't linger there, or maybe you shouldn't be there.
Right. So I just discovered a small little. I'm not going to worry about it now. I discovered a weird little thing. Half of the stream, I don't think anyone could hear me because I noticed that my mic wasn't being picked up on OBS. Well, sure enough, because it likes to switch my settings around, my mic wasn't selected. So for the last half an hour, I was saying nothing. Yeah, which it's fine now. So just for anyone that's catching up on the stream, I fixed the problem, so I don't know why it did that. But luckily, I'm recording, so I can always just add the audio in later.
Yeah, I would just do that. Just later on upload a completely edited version of that. Yeah, so that's always smart. But yeah, we've had some activity around this house lately that's been slightly annoying. Joanna's in the medical profession, and periodically, paranormal and the medical profession tend to go hand in hand. And she'll come home, and sometimes something will start to brew. Like we'll get like a ghost periodically or something doing something, or we'll get voices in the house, or my mother will be one of the first to catch on that something's going on if we're distracted or something like that. But recently, this was this morning actually, and I woke up to the loud sound of somebody yelling in my ear as loud as possible, "Good morning," really loudly. And
that would annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah, I'm like, the hell? I was sound asleep, and of course, Joanna gets up, takes a shower because she has to be out the door by like 7:15, 7:30, and so she just lets me sleep, shuts the alarm off, stuff like that, and she'll wake me up if I don't wake up. But this, I didn't need anybody else coming in there. It was incredibly loud, like a regular person was yelling really loudly. This was a woman's voice, and this person's like, "Good morning." I mean, really, really loudly. And to the point where, how when somebody yells or screams, like if there's an object nearby, sometimes they can vibrate things close to them from the sound waves. It was like that, where things were like the lampshade started to shake a little bit and everything from the vibration from the yelling. And I'm going, okay, that's kind of creepy. But And I looked around. I wanted to figure out before I did a session this morning, and I'm going, okay, I got to figure this out. Somebody might be an annoying, mischievous somebody during my session. I don't want that, so I had to look. Didn't find anything at all, but that was really weird. It's not too common. We get the yelling ones, the really loud ones like that, but we do get them sometimes, and we could get woken up in the middle of the night. Joanna and I both heard the same female voice one time, about it was like 5 a.m. one time, yelling my name, going Chris, like that, and we both heard it, and to the point where I thought it was her, and I woke up and went, what? And she goes, nope, that's just somebody being an asshole.
And
so
that just made me kind of think of mimics. And I got a small, quick little story about that. My youngest son took the stepkids to the park yesterday, and he came in and told me that he could have swore he heard Jamie calling his name, my wife, and she wasn't home. She was at work. Yeah, but
okay.
this was this was outside.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a strong mimic then if it was outside.
Yeah, because he said he looked around. He didn't see. He's like, because he thought like, oh, what, is she home now? And he looked around. And she wasn't anywhere. The car wasn't out there or nothing. But he heard her voice.
Yeah, that. Yeah, we've run into that when we were in Arizona. There was an incident where I'm out in the garage workshop, and I had the door, the regular door to the house inside there open, and I'm hearing this loud female voice coming from our bedroom. I bet you can't find me. I'm like, okay, I bet I can. I'm gonna go hunting now. But it was a female voice coming from the closet in the bedroom. Eventually, I found there was like some weird ghost activity, and my mother and I had to go looking for it. But it was the middle of the day, sun was out, and normally you think nighttime with paranormal, but it can happen at any point in time. But I heard this coming from our closet in our bedroom, and I was out in the garage, but it wasn't that far. The hallway wasn't that far. The two rooms weren't that far away from each other. And it was, that was fairly loud. That was at literally voice tone, like regular human voice tone. And those are not common when that happens. Those are not completely rare. They're kind of somewhere in between. But around us, sometimes we will hear things around here. We'll hear noises inside of here that we had a residual happen where the former owner of the house here, or former renter or whomever, was very violent towards his wife, and we every now and again we'll hear a china cabinet crash on the other side of the house, and we don't even own a china cabinet, so we know it was one because we could hear things falling out and rolling out and breaking and everything, and it's usually some kind of shelf or cabinet that had stuff in it, and it came from the kitchen. Every now and again we hear it, and we thought originally somebody was breaking into the house, and we're like, oh crap, we're going to have to beat the crap out of somebody, and no. It was a residual. It was so strong with such strong emotions that it created a repeating loop. And it was a former owner or renter of the house that was fairly abusive. And we could see some really aged evidence around the house that there had been an abusive person that lived here. We could tell like the bedroom had broken into, somebody was trying to get into the bathroom, or the person was hiding and stuff like that. We could tell by looking at it, by following kind of the evidence a little bit. There was some really old evidence that if you didn't know where to look, you wouldn't have noticed it. But like somebody had painted over something or something, but we could clearly tell at some point in the house's history that was actually true.
Interesting.
And yeah, so there was some evidence left behind by whomever that was, and it was fairly old. It looked like it was from about maybe 2-3 owners ago, further back, probably in the 90s or something like that, because you could clearly tell somebody had painted over things numerous times or had fixed something numerous times, but you could clearly tell there was a little bit of the residual evidence, physical evidence left behind from it. So we kind of guesstimated it was sometime around in the late 90s, early 2000s or something that it had taken place. And there was a couple around that time that lived here, and there wasn't much known about it. We just knew there was a couple. And that was pretty much it.
that kind of just made me think, like, because you're talking about like actually doing an investigation kind of there, and it kind of got me
Mhm.
thinking. So I know that you used to be part of the Paranormal Lights group that I'm now part of, with me and Laura are part of, back in the day, and I know that they've told me some stories about, like, for example, you apparently trying to take the temperature of a moth, which I found was kind of funny. I know you say you don't remember that, but I apparently
Yeah, I
Nick and
remember that.
Laura do. I'm kind of curious. What is your perspective? Like, what do you remember? Because I don't think you've ever really told me too many of your personal experiences with that.
Oh yeah, one of the best ones that I remember. There's actually two that really stand out. Uh, One was at Ball Cemetery, and we went there, and my father was with us that night, and we went to. We were taking random pictures. Nick was taking random pictures, and my father could feel this really like cold, creepy energy just pass him like this. Go past him, and I told Nick to take a picture, and out came this big apparition on his camera, and a lot of activity there. I have a lot of fond memories of that particular investigation. A lot of colored orbs flying around there, a lot of activity in that particular cemetery, and it's the fourth most haunted site in the country. Unfortunately, it's on private property, and nobody can get to it to do anything about it. But they completely sealed it off. But it was actually, that's one of my most fond memories of doing investigations. And there was one night, and this one really stood out. And this one actually creeped Nick out. This was one where we went to, I believe it was Eagle or Alvo Cemetery. I think it was Eagle, if I'm not mistaken. Nick will probably remember the name. But we went into the cemetery. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and we thought another team was already there. And we just saw people wandering around in there, physical people. And it dawned on us when we got in there that these were ghosts, and they were just physically manifested. And what ended up happening was I had this Ryobi spotlight on me that we used when him and I would go fishing. So I had that on me, and I just shined it at one of these ghosts, and the person vanished. And then when I turned the light back off, they were there again. And there was probably
So it was like
good
the whole,
dozen or
like,
so.
it was like the whole trope of, like, you turn the light off, you can kind of see the shadow. You turn the light on, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
and that's yeah. They weren't just shadows; these were actually, you could physically see them, and like they weren't. These were, you could clearly see them looking at you and everything. And I told Nick, that I was like, okay, I'm just going to walk out there amongst them and see what happens. We're here; we might as well just experiment a little bit. So I walked into the cemetery, and it was almost like a zombie movie where the hands would come towards you, and they didn't touch, but they were like about here. And I'm going, okay, this is pretty creepy. If I wasn't with somebody, I'd probably shit my pants at this point. But it's but the fact that there's more than one person there, it cuts the creepy level down a lot. So what ended up happening was, a little bit later, apparently a cop goes by, a state trooper goes by, state patrolman, thinking that some people were out in the cemetery past hours, which was just us two. This cop actually saw this taking place. And he comes walking up to us going, "Why are all you people here?" I went, "Officer, you do realize me and Nick here are the only two humans, along with yourself, in this cemetery, right?" And he's looking at me. I said, "I want to show you something." And I shined a light on one of them, did the whole disappearing thing. I thought that cop was going to shit himself. So this is somebody that's obviously run into criminals, he was, I think, a former soldier too. And this was probably something he was not counting on running into.
Yeah, no, he didn't wake
And
up that morning thinking, "Well, I'm gonna run into some ghosts today."
yeah, and his eyes got really big, and he went over to the car, and he acted like something came through on the radio. He goes, "Guys, I'm pretty sure you can find your way out of here. Just know you're past hours, and I'm going to leave. Goodbye." And he just leaves. So, That was actually one of the funnier things that we ran into on an investigation that I remember. And I just wish more pictures had been taken. I know Nick tried to take pictures of them, and all he got were these plasmoids that showed up, these colored plasmoids that showed up on the camera. That would have been really cool to get a picture, but he did it without flash, with flash, and all it came out were these colored streamers. And but the incident with the cop was the funniest because he saw it, and that's validation right there. Is when he too saw it. It was a completely different, impartial.
Yeah, there was a when me and Laura did a reaction stream about a month or so ago. One of the videos was like we actually did like police like body cam footage. One of the videos was like a collection of that, and yeah, like cops run into some of the craziest shit too when it comes to the paranormal. So, like this, the body cam on this one particular one was he's walking up the stairs and doors are closing and opening and things like that, and like you could kind of tell like he was like just ready to get the fuck out of there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, cops are always running into paranormal activity. I know my father, when he was on patrol, they ran into some creepy shit a lot. Like in some of the old buildings in Chicago, they were running into shadow people. They were running into weird stuff that would crawl in the interior of the building, stuff like that. Something you would write a horror script about. They were him and his partner Frank were running into a whole ton of those things. So they had multiple stories about when they had to make stops or go bust somebody or something like that. They would run into a building where there was nobody in them, but yet they're hearing things. They've seen shadow people. My father described this weird like entity that had long fingers and glowy eyes and shadowy and everything. And yeah, him and his partner Frank ran into a ton of stuff like that. And yeah, even Frank told some stories about seeing ghosts of children and things of that nature. So it told us about it. When he knew I was in this type of field, he was telling me some stuff before he passed away. But we when my grandfather passed away, my father's father, you've heard of probably some of those phantom calls where you just get dead air for a while after somebody's died.
I've had those before.
Oh yeah, my father got that where he like a few days in a row after my grandfather died, until he acknowledged that that's who was doing it. He was getting this phone call where it was just nothing but dead air. I said, "You do realize that's Grandpa, right? Where this is a common occurrence after somebody's passed away." And he just got all bug-eyed. He's like, "Oh my God, that is him." And then the call stopped as soon as he acknowledged who it was. And several clients have told me that too, about the dead air calls. On cell phones, it's rarer. But then it comes in the form of an EVP. Like if you have a camera going and you're recording a home video or something, you'll either get the physical activity or you'll get an EVP on there, and you'll sometimes get who it is trying to contact you as well. So in the digital age, it's come in the form of more EVPs and visuals. But now 35 millimeter cameras, I noticed the old ones, the film, like those disposable cameras you'd get from like Walmart from the day back in the day, or from Walgreens or something. Those were the best cameras to get activity on, with the ones that you take in and develop it at the 1 hour photo. Those were the best cameras to get activity on back in the day. And I remember getting a lot of stills of some interesting.
Yeah, because it kind of feels like with digital cameras nowadays that we have, or our phone, everyone's got a phone. I don't know. It doesn't seem like we're capturing, like, it kind of feels like a lot of the old like Polaroids and old pictures where you would develop came out a little clearer, whereas this new digital stuff we have just isn't quite cutting it as far as paranormal activity goes.
It filters out what it thinks is an anomaly, and you don't get as much.
Right, like
I know.
Like whenever you're watching, like, I watch a lot of like, Slapped Ham, for example, great YouTuber, and like he'll be showing all these collection of videos and stuff, and it's like, even with all this technology that we have, why does everything still look so blurry and grainy?
Yeah, I blame those that are trying to either get a Sasquatch picture or a UFO picture or something. It's like, can you not hold the damn thing still
Right?
long enough?
Like every time you're watching one of those, they're like, it's like they're like waving the phone all over the place. Like, can you keep it in frame? Like, what
Yeah,
are you hopped up on sugar or something? What's going on?
yeah, and it's also like in Phasmophobia, how all the characters move weird and everything. I swear they're doing that when they're trying to aim. They're like this. It's like really, you can't hold this together for like at least a minute so you can actually get something on camera properly. I don't understand this, folks. If anybody wants to explain this to me, let me know.
I too would like to understand like why people cannot capture anything without shaking their camera all over the place.
Yeah, I can understand if they're a little spooked by what they're looking at, but at the very least, hold it still long enough so you can at least record it properly. And
Or
you're
put it on
already
a
looking at the
tripod or
thing.
something.
Now I realize it's not always possible to get it because most of the time people catch it on a whim, like they've run into the thing. But even Aubrey, when he caught a UFO on camera one time, he was surprised as hell by it, but he still stood there long enough to record the damn thing and didn't move.
Right?
So yeah.
So it's possible, but like yet you see a lot of these videos, which makes me wonder if maybe they're faking it in some way if they can't hold the damn thing still. Like, oh, we can't
I've
we
run
got to
into it.
move it around so it doesn't so it looks real.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot too. Oh yeah, I fully acknowledge that. Yeah, some of the people that don't want to put it in focus are the ones like faking the thing too. So yeah, I've run into that myself. I hate the fact that it's been blended together on the internet, and you really, really have to discern now
Yeah,
on
there's
things.
so much stuff out there like you luckily I can watch a video and kind of analyze it. I've done enough of this stuff and where I can look at it and go, oh yeah, they CG'd that in there. Like there was one video that circulated around for a while and it looked like this creature in the back of a house or something like that. And finally, years later, the dude came out and showed exactly how I did it. He 3D modeled it and everything.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I hate that. And I know that there's also government agencies out there in order to flood the market with like deep fakes and everything. They make a buttload of them. And if anybody gets any real proof out there, it's overshadowed by a lot of the deep fakes. And so that's 9/10 of what you're dealing with is some of that. And then you get some diamonds in the rough that are absolutely awesome. Though we noticed that here every now and again we will get something really cool when we're not expecting it. Like we'll get a UFO on camera, or we will get a ghost or something. Like the case in point when Aubrey and I went to Lake Street Lake there in Lincoln, when back in 2016, I believe. That we noticed that over the top of the neighborhood there, because it's right in the middle of the neighborhood, and it's a dried up lake, essentially that was in the middle of the neighborhood. And what happened was there was my intuition was telling me I was looking at this plane going overhead, and I'm going, all right, my intuition was just screaming at me, take pictures of the plane. And I'm going, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do that. People, you got to listen to that. When you have that happen, you got to listen to this. Well, it ended up being one of the best things I could have done because I took one picture and something told me to take a second, a third picture of the plane. In the second frame, there is a UFO paralleling the plane.
Sometimes the best stuff just happens on accident.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. There was this spheroid ship that was following, or this craft that was following the aircraft alongside. And I showed that to Aubrey. He's like, "No, you actually got something before I did." He was like, "What the hell?" Like that. But nobody was expecting a picture of a UFO, and it was actually quite interesting when that came up because I'm looking at this and you just do something was different was happening. You couldn't put your finger on it, but you knew on an intuitive level like something's not right or something's different. Like that uncanny valley side of yourself comes out and goes, "Wait a minute, something isn't right here." And and then taking the picture that ended up proving it that right. Like there was something there that nobody else was seeing, but the camera did. So that I thought was actually quite interesting. And you got to follow that feeling no matter where you are and what you're doing. If you get that feeling where the hair on the back of your neck stands up a little bit, honor that you're picking up on something.
It's interesting how technology will still pick up things that, the naked eye or the naked ear can't hear. You know what I mean? Like, and it just kind of plays on the whole, what I think is like, this stuff operates on a different frequency, and our technology is almost on that same wavelength. And it makes me wonder if that's why we can capture this stuff, but we can't see or hear it.
Yeah, we have a natural filter in place unless you're born with it, not as thick. But I did notice one thing happening when we were in Arizona, and I found this quite fascinating. Where I'm following this really bright orb around the house. This isn't one of those where it just goes boop. It's not one of those things that could be mistaken for dust. This was like an off-white, bluish color, like kind of bluish tint, but mostly white, that was in the center of the screen, that was like this bright like orb. I'm looking through the phone screen at it, but then I look where the phone's looking at. I can't visually see it, but the phone can see it. So I'm looking at, and I even say on the video, it's folks, I can't see it on the other side of the phone here, but on the screen I can clearly see it. So obviously the camera was picking up on something that my naked eye could not see. Joanna was sitting on the couch. She's like, "What are you filming?" And I walked over to her and showed her. I said, "That." And she's like, "We can't see that without the phone." And I was like, "I know our eyes are not seeing it, but there's some kind of filter that dropped with the technology, and the technology picked up on it." I found that fascinating in real time. We couldn't. I wish we could have been able to compare it with someone else's phone, but it probably would have picked up on the same thing. But
That would be
if
an
we could have
interesting
somehow,
experiment to do. Like, if you're ever out investigating and you see something on the phone, have everyone else get out their phones and see if it picks it up.
yeah, that'd be a good corroboration. Like if you can see if something's lingering for a while, generally things don't always linger. But if it does, if any of you listening ever run into a situation where the activity is actually long lasting, which isn't completely common, try to have someone else there filming from another angle, and try to pick it up in two angles and see what happens if the other phone or other camera or whatever you have happens to be seeing it at the same time. That would be very interesting to do. That's very rare when anyone does that, but I've heard of it happening. But most of the time, people are spooked and they aren't thinking of these things. But if people listening, if you could get past whatever that initial fight or flight is, and then go into more of a neutral, logical mode and try to kind of corroborate a little bit and try to film it from different angles, that would be extremely helpful. And if you could possibly do that. Unfortunately, we didn't have a way to do that when that orb was showing up, but it was really bright. And I know most people don't trust orbs because there's and it's one of the most important pieces of evidence, because there's from elemental to Sasquatch to UFOs to ghosts. It's all over the board, and I don't trust every single thing I'm looking at. This is why if you see certain videos that I'm in, I always ask that an orb appear in the center of the screen to answer a question. I'm always saying, if this is a yes, put it in the center of the screen at this point. And you'll see every time there'll be a faint one or a slightly brighter one, and something will blip and appear if something is manipulating the environment. So if I don't have a ghost box, I do the old orb in the center of the screen trick, and that tends to work.
Yeah, that's actually, you know what? That's good. Yeah, because I don't really put a lot of stock in orbs either. But that's interesting to like maybe get intelligent responses with orbs. That might be something I try later on.
Yeah, definitely try that. Definitely try the intelligent responses, because otherwise you could weed that out as nothing. But if you get an intelligent responding orb, then you have something, most definitely.
Right. One kind of last thing I don't know why I was just thinking about it, because with when you look at all this paranormal activity and all these weird things that happen in general, what is your take on maybe the possibility that none of it's real and we're just in some kind of a simulation and it's all just programs being glitchy?
Yeah, a lot of people believe that. Like, if you're in some people believe other people are like NPCs within the simulation, where they're non-playable characters. And what that is people are zoning out because sometimes there's mind control on them. A lot of them. Sometimes there's fragments of them in other dimensions, things of this nature that are pulling their attention. But do I think it's a simulation? No, but I think there are forces out there that would like you to believe you're in a simulation or on a prison planet or something like that. I've heard prison planet a number of times too, along with simulation theory. But do I think we are in a more of an experiment? Yes.
That I can see.
Where you.
That another thing scientists say too, like with the multi-dimensional thing, and this can go hand in hand. There's a lot of scientists believe that there's a 99% chance that we are in a simulation, and maybe alternate realities could just be another section of the server that we're on, or another server, or something like that, or just maybe we're just one file copy with millions of files.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to think about. I don't think
fake.
it's true. I personally don't think we're in a simulation. I've seen some weird things to make me go, maybe there is something to the theory, but I don't think we are.
Yeah, like when people see something that they think is a glitch in the matrix, what they're seeing is timeline jumping, is what it is. They're seeing timeline changes and Mandela effects and stuff like that. They're not actually seeing a simulation. Do I think some beings out there experimented with us, like with alien abduction and everything? Absolutely, 100%. But at the same time, could they be directing a few things going on? Yes, but they can't control timeline glitches and things of that nature. So I can see how a being could get someone to believe it. They can manipulate someone's belief more than they could the environment. So that's easier for some of these mind controlling entities and stuff to do, and V2K and everything. They get you to believe the thing so strongly that then your bias is actually seeing it as a simulation versus actual reality. So also, some people, if they believe they're in a simulation, they believe they're infallible to the law, reality, and all this other stuff. And you get some weirdo jumping off the roof of a building in a pirate costume. So it's like,
Yeah, right. Now I do believe
Yeah.
that to a certain degree, like, what if you take the concept of computer code, like, your video games are all ran by code, everything has a program, everything has a purpose. I think the same thing, the same kind of concept could still be applied to reality with all the energy and like the magic work that I've explained that I do, being Wiccan and everything like that. In a lot of way, you're kind of reprogramming reality. So I feel like it's a similar concept. Computer code just, manipulates whatever reality is in the computer. It's fake, but it's there to do that, and it's kind of the same thing with reality. That's what energy does. That's how I look at it.
And I also, I completely agree with 110%. But I also found that there is a dimensional space that's computer born too. Bjorn and I nicknamed it the Tronverse because it's very similar in appearance to like the Tron environment in the Tron movies, and it's with the sharp colors and everything, where a physical person can actually go there. Like, it's another dimensional space, and it was created quite some time ago. And we did find out there is an actual space where certain dimensional signals, like from our technology, do pass through on a regular basis, like in Star Trek, where they had the subspace signals. There is something similar with some of our signals where it's passing through a dimensional space. And this ended up being what we called the Tronverse. And that's the nickname we came up with for it, because we didn't know the actual name for it. We just knew by appearance what we believe it was. Does that mean we're in a simulation world? Absolutely not. That just means that's another space that happens to be computer born versus nature born. And so that's what the Tronverse comes in. It's just like there was this episode of the X-Files where there was a few characters in it they called the Lone Gunman. And those three characters were computer hackers that would help Mulder and Scully all the time. They died in the series. Their characters were killed off because they had their own spin-off and on the whole bit. And they were buried in Arlington and all this other stuff. But later on, when the show came back, these three characters came back, but there were copies of them in a simulation of Earth, and it was like almost like a Tronverse, but it looked like ours. The government in the series was trying to create a variation of the Matrix, and anybody that would touch their cell phone would have a copy paste of their own selves inside this Tronverse type of environment. and there was a server and a backup server that had this environment on it in a government facility or a couple of bases in the storyline. Do I think they're capable of that? Yeah, I think them and some aliens are capable of it. But do I think they have the resources to maintain, like aliens or humans? Do I think they have the resources to maintain, other than dimensional space I talked about, to maintain somebody locked in a simulation? No, it would take far too many resources, and it's just easier to manipulate somebody to believe they're in.
Right. Think about it this way: to run such a simulation like reality, right, like what we're living in now, we're already having a hard enough time. Like, imagine the resources it's already taking to run the AI that we have. Imagine trying to run a simulation with realistic graphics, and like the planet would burn out. There's no way the technology exists, even in an alien form, to run a simulation like what we're living in right now. There's just no way.
There's not enough.
Being a computer guy myself, I know what it would take to run something like that, and I don't think the technology exists anywhere in the universe to run something like that.
Yeah, with some of the beings I run into that I knew were alien, they even said, "Yeah, we don't have that kind of crap. We might have like a holodeck type of thing for like a little room or something, but to run an entire planet on and create a whole universe and multiverse, no, not at all."
And if we really were in a simulation, then who's running that? You know what I mean? Like that would just like that can take you down a rabbit hole that I don't think that anyone could ever explain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also somebody out there wants people to co-create that reality. Like they even had a reference on Star Trek to an optronic data core, which is the holodeck technology that's in it, where Picard makes a reference to. I wonder if someone else has our reality sitting on their desk as a holographic reality, and it's just like so they tried to plant that seed back in the '90s with that, and it ends up it's mostly a psyops, but that they're trying to get people to believe this. And I know aspects of the Matrix movies are true. A lot of the things they were talking about in that were indeed true, but meant more for the soul and spirit and Gnostic beliefs of entities and beings, possessing people like Smith did, versus that of an actual computer a Matrix. So they were adding in Gnostic ideas in there versus that of Matrix, but the whole idea of the simulation started out a little bit before then, and then when the Matrix was written, it really got solidified in people's heads.
Yeah, that's what I think too, and maybe that will be something that we can discuss a little more in depth down the road. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that the technology to run something like reality exists anywhere. I mean, we can simulate it very easily with the technology that we have now, but that doesn't make it real.
No, it would just be a series of photonic images.
Because when you're playing a video game, everything you're looking at is just pixels on a screen. They're like, now, are we getting closer and closer? Maybe to kind of having something with AI being involved, maybe a little bit. Because once you start seeing the AI like what we have now started being more and more implemented in games, now we're talking about something.
Mm-hmm. Then you have closer to holodeck level technology, because what that really entailed was this grid of a room that had the projectors within the lining of the grid, and then all you had were the four walls, and all you were doing was walking around the edge of the room. Even though it was a much larger rendered environment, it was still confined to a small room about the size of my office here. It wasn't all that big, and that's how they created all these realistic holograms, and that's based on real tech of where the AI would go, and even and Joanna and I talked about this on our one of our Q&A episodes, where I actually saw a snippet from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where the commentators on this other podcast were saying that they were showing what AI technology would do, because they were showing someone analyzing someone's photo by turning it around from a profile to a face and actually identifying who this assailant was in the video they were looking at in the episode. And they're saying, well, they predicted the AI technology that we use now, that they could extrapolate the face of somebody to look for, like, say, a criminal or something like that. So Star Trek also predicted pads like iPads and tablets, phones, all that kind of stuff. And I shouldn't say predicted. That shows that progression of the tech was planned by
Right.
somebody. That
I
was
don't
more.
know if it was necessarily a prediction, more like I think people were inspired by the ideas that were presented in it. Gene Roddenberry, when he wrote a lot of that, he probably just kind of came up with this stuff in his head. And, a lot of people probably looked at that for inspiration and go, I want to make that. Someday we'll have a holodeck. Who knows?
Oh yeah, it's based on some actual physics, but also Trek took a lot of liberties with physics and quantum
Oh,
mechanics
yeah.
and things like that too.
Yeah, but I think a
Just
lot
for
of
entertainment.
people look to sci-fi as inspiration, not necessarily about it predicting anything, just as inspiration. Because if we didn't have those shows back then what inspiration would we have had?
Yeah, exactly. It inspired us to create whole genres like the artist Frank Frazetta. I found out he had a major influence on things like Dungeons and Dragons, on Conan, on a bunch of
Mm.
other types of things.
Oh
Where
yeah,
when
no,
he drew the art,
he was a great
yeah.
fantasy artist. Great fantasy artist. That's one of my favorite things. Like aside from anime, I love fantasy art.
Oh yeah, a lot of his stuff was absolutely great. And you see a lot of those like Louis Royo and all of those. Yeah, I think all those were inspired by like somebody like Frank Frazetta because he created his own genre. And then a lot of the art was inspired later on. A lot of copycats came along, and it created its own section later on, its own genre, its own preference, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, people like that came along at the right time and basically steered art or literature in the right direction or a different direction.
Right. I think the biggest catalyst of them all when it comes to that would have been Lord of the Rings and, of course, Robert E. Howard's Conan, which followed
Yeah.
shortly after. It just had its own fantasy take, which is the sword and sorcery genre. So it's interesting how humans can look at things for inspiration. Like for example, they always say The Simpsons keeps predicting things, and I don't even know if it's necessarily that. I think it's just inspiration.
There were a couple of things though the Simpsons got, like they showed the election of President Trump, for instance, on like an episode that aired, I believe it was in 2003.
Yeah, something
Uh,
like that.
yeah, and they showed him going down the escalator. It's one of the famous ones that people cite as a reference for predicting the future. And I looked it up. Looked it up. It was called Bart to the Future. It was in 2003, and it showed Bart jumping ahead to 2016 when Trump's going down the escalator. And that's an event that actually took place. Some people believe that was time agents that did this, like from the Montauk Project and such, that they jumped ahead and actually cataloged what they were looking at and then turned it into media back in their time when they came back. So back in the 80s and such.
It does
So
kind of make you wonder if they're trying to tell us something, through the media. Like they can't tell us directly, so they put these little hints in our media and stuff. It just kind of makes you wonder if that's what they're trying to do.
yeah, there is some disclosure. I've done with a couple friends of mine, Richie and Ryan. We do disclosure in the media every now and again in different video games. I noticed the Elder Scrolls has some of the top disclosure stuff that I have ever seen, both in Alien and symbolic, and also mythological as well. I've noticed that, and Fallout seems to have a lot, both of those. Where we've analyzed those games. There's also a few out there like Halo. That's more for secret space program, and Super Soldiers. So there's a lot of other things that they've integrated. Metal Gear Solid had super soldiers in it and psychic soldier types in it. So yeah, there's a lot of disclosure in there, and they, according to some of these magical rules they follow, they have to tell you what they're doing so they can continue to do it, and because they think they're karma free at that point. That's what these organizations believe.
See,
They believe
again, I kind of feel like some of that is more inspirational as opposed to predictability. But you could be onto something there. Like we look at this stuff as inspiration rather than, these things are real at the time and then they're just trying to tell us. Sometimes I think that people just made it up and we look to it for inspiration.
That's true. There is another side to that coin where then people ran with it in a different direction too. It's important to discern which one is which too. And Joanna and I came up with a phrase recently that kind of categorizes this age we're living in right now, the age of discernment. And that's about that pretty much sums up the time we're living in right now. They like to call it like the age of Aquarius and all this other stuff. I said no, it's the age of discernment. You have to decide what reality is.
Right. No, 100%. 100%. Yeah, because I mean, when you look at stuff on the internet, you really have to think about what's real and what's not.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I noticed there's a lot of crap out there. So yeah, before Joanna and I ever film shows or do anything like that, I look at something up and down. I don't want to be representing a video or anything like that that is crap or some kind of propaganda or
right. Or AI
like
is getting so good now that you can watch a video and then now you have to question. Well, I mean, there's some telltale signs if you know what to look for. They still can't do hands for shit. So that's one thing.
No.
But like sometimes now you can watch an AI video and you really have to think, did I just watch something real? Now, if it's outright ridiculous, but yeah, it's getting to the point where it's hard to tell what's real and what's not.
Oh yeah, these AI apps and such are getting really, really good at doing pictures and everything. And it is sometimes it's not tough for me because I've made a few of them in apps and everything. I know what to look for too. And your whole uncanny valley kicks in where that's where something isn't quite right. Even if the most perfect AI images, the most crisp ones, that part of you is always going to kick in and go, wait a minute, something's off.
Yeah. Fun fact about all of that, a lot of people think that this is all relatively new. It's actually not. AI images were being generated as far back as the 80s. It was very primitive. But I mean, it goes as far back as that.
Oh yeah. Oh, Trek used a lot of it, other than just the models that they used for all the ships and the space stations and everything. And they used a lot of that in that series too. They used it in Star Wars, all those things. But yeah, it's gotten far more advanced now.
Right. So, it kind of, because I think there for a while, AI as a concept, like what we have now, was kind of shelved for a little bit because there wasn't a whole lot of talk about it. I mean, here and there, but it's like just in the last 5 years or so, it just blew the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and even within the past year, I've noticed advancements in the apps. They'll put an update in there that just completely.
Oh yeah, no, new. I mean, now that we've got all this training going on, all this data is being trained. It's just getting better and better by the day now. Like new models are coming out every day now. It's crazy. And so here pretty soon, you're going to start seeing paranormal videos coming out, and you're going to have to decide, okay, was that AI made, or did someone actually legitimately capture that?
Yeah, I noticed that too, and me and Joanna were talking about this recently. Going, I don't think I could almost not trust somebody else's now unless we were involved. I know that sounds arrogant, but it's like I can't trust it now unless I was actually there,
right?
To film it or to see it. So I know that's people that know me going, really? He went that route? Yeah, because I started out on the other end of the spectrum a long time ago where I thought skeptics were idiots. But I'm getting to the point where going, no, they're not that stupid. So
and I've always kind of been a partial skeptic. Obviously I do still believe in things, but you have to take things with a grain of salt, because if you believe literally every single thing you see, then you're heading for a road of disaster.
Oh yeah, you're an idiot at that point. I didn't believe everything I saw. I just thought that skeptics weren't seeing reality for what it was, that they were being too biased, and it was like that's still true to a point if people are really closed down. But that's generally you have to be half and half in order to actually have 1 foot in one world, 1 foot in another.
Yeah, you gotta have a happy medium with a balance in there, because you should still try to have an open mind if possible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So there's a few things that I've questioned, because I've fallen for stuff myself, especially doing channelings and things of that nature. People remember some of my early days doing different channels. I fell for stuff with certain beings that I thought were fine that turned out to actually be evil as sin, or mischievous. And I'm extremely careful now. I don't do too many channelings or anything outside of this room now that I'm sitting in. So yeah, anybody that does that kind of work, you have to be skeptical the yin yang with beings that if you can see them, and you're talking to them, you have to be skeptical of their intentions 110%. You don't always have to be skeptical of their existence, just be skeptical of the intent of whomever is trying to speak to you. And I've adapted that policy very, very heavily now. I scrutinize anything and everything that I'm looking at now to the extreme. And some people think I'm being too anal retentive now with protections and things of that nature. But no, we've been hit too many times with both scams and with etherics, and I have to be skeptical in both respects.
Yeah. No, you have to. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Do you have any other stories you want to talk about, Phantom?
No, honestly, I think at this point I'm ready to call it a night. I know I'm getting hungry, so I don't really have too much else. But this was good. This was good. Like I kind of want to do maybe one of these a month where we just all sit back and shoot the shit a little bit. This was good.
Yeah, exactly. I like some of these randomized ones, where we're not always planning anything out. And some people that know me would be surprised at that because I plan out our shows, things of this nature all the time. Sometimes things are impromptu, and those end up being the best ones.
Right.
So,
yeah, I know we had a little bit of a technical problem there in the beginning, but good thing I caught that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I think we're gonna go ahead and call it for tonight. Thanks for coming in, guys. And if you have anything you want to add to anything we've talked about tonight, feel free to leave a comment, and we'll definitely get back to you.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Have a good night, folks.
Yep, have a good night.